Yep.
Hi, and welcome to Mark's Motivational Podcast, another Thursday episode. I'm delighted again to be joined by Tony Gordon, who's very kindly agreed to come on and talk about future pacing. So again, you're very welcome along today, Tony. Thanks a lot for joining me.
That's great, man. Thank you again for inviting me here. I'm always happy to come along.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks a lot. And so we'll probably start off, we're going to talk about future pacing today. So would you mind giving a small explanation of what you think future pacing is and how you use it, please?
Yeah, future pacing simply is like preparing yourself mentally. So it's like a sort of mental visualization. What I mean is the future pacing looks at a certain scenario that someone either wants to do or wants to do again. So for example, if you've got someone who's got a sort of, say they've got a fear of talking in public, that's one example now. A lot of people coming out of COVID now, being told now from this week they've got to go back to work, and they're so used to presenting on Zoom, but they're not used to doing it in public anymore, and they feel a bit awkward. So what future pacing can use with someone like that is getting to remember a time when they actually were presenting in front of a group or an audience live, getting to imagine all the feelings that it was. So using all your senses, see, hear, feel, touch, imagine that. Then they take those thoughts and then put it into a future pace. So that means, okay, think about when you're going to do it next and you've got all those feelings like you had before. How are you going to feel then? Just imagine yourself seeing, hearing, feeling that, what that will be like. And it makes it a lot easier for them to do the transition into it. So it's a way of future pacing simply means it's pacing yourself forward to be something you want to be in a future time.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great explanation. And you were saying earlier as well before we came on live or on air, that like you can use it in both NLP and hypnosis. Do you want to just explain what you mean by that, Tony?
Yeah, both of them are done for the same sort of reason, but maybe different ways, depending on what. There's different techniques. It's not just NLP and hypnotherapy. A lot of coaches will use this towards the end of sessions when they work with someone. And that's just so when they leave, they know that person's got those feelings. They've got to set, they understand what they want to do, depending on when it is. It could be an event they want to do in a week, a month, 6 months, whatever. So they'll do that and make sure that they're ready for it. So for examples, people like performance is a big one. So talking in public's one. But you think a lot of, if you think at the moment, athletes, sports people. So you think of someone like someone who shoots and you see them shooting, they shoot, they can hear that. They don't just see it, they hear the shot hitting the target. So they know they've got that. They can hear that. You can also see that. So they can imagine both of them. They're looking and they help them do that. You've got something like a judo, someone who's judo. If you imagine them grabbing someone else's the suit as they go to throw them, that's touch, that's the feeling. So that's how they'd imagine something like that going forward. What does it feel like when they do that? Smell, you imagine a swimmer, they go into a pool. As a swimmer goes to the pool, you smell the chlorine before you even go into the water. And taste, you imagine being at a beach. If you ever walk along the side of a beach, you get that taste, not just the smell of the sea, but you get the taste. You sort of feel the salt in the air and you can taste that. So all these are feelings that we can get and our senses pick up. And that's what you would use to imagine something in the future, using all those senses.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's really good because I understand what you're saying, like, you know, about the swimming part, like, and because what I found was great as well, like when we were practicing before, where I wanted to kind of improve my running, let's say, you know, and the person was guiding me through it. He kind of showed me in months to come where I'm after winning a race or I'm happy with my personal best that I got and all that kind of stuff. So you can use it in that kind of way as well, can't you? Like if someone has kind of a barrier of holding them back or whatever it is, and you can kind of show them achieving that and bring them back and show the steps. Is it would you use it like that, Tony?
Yeah, so you imagine, like you just mentioned, I run an athlete, and you imagine them getting ready for an event. So you would get them to think of what state they would need to be in for at the start of the race. So really what you're looking for, you want calmness as in your heart rate calm, but you also want them focused. So that's something you could utilize. So you already got them to imagine being calm, their heart rate's there, breathing clearly, but being totally focused on what they've got to do. what is it they want to get out of it? So what kind of time do you want to achieve? Do they have set points in the race where they would have that? So you see somebody saying, look, when they're doing a marathon, after like 5 miles, I want to be at a certain point at a certain time, 10 miles. Then they know if they've got to pick up pace or change the pace. And so they could do that maybe a quarter way through, halfway through, three, whatever it is to do. What kind of strategy they use to get there as well? So thinking at those points, where are they at those points? So do they need to be in the lead? Some people like being in the lead ahead of everybody. Others like it to be something like they want to follow someone so that they're pushing themselves for there and then overtake maybe at the end. So they use a strategy in the race about where they need to move, where they need to go quicker, when they need to slow down. And obviously at the end of the race is what the future pace really be about. Get them to imagine when they cross that line. What does that feel like? What's it like when the crowd shouts? So that's the hearing. You hear people clap, cheering your name when you go by. Visually imagine yourself going through that. The touch is breaking through the tape at the end of the race. You feel I'm doing that before anybody else. So all these emotions, and that's what you would use in your future pace. Get them to feel on sense and feel all those things.
Yeah, that's great because you're using all their senses there as well. So that's brilliant. I love that part of it as well. And as well, would you use them like in kind of timelines as well? Would you use the future pacing, like bring them on their timeline to use it, Tony?
Again, with timeline, it's something maybe where your audience understands what we mean by that. It's a technique that's used in NLP for coaching and also can be used in hypnotherapy. It just means that going along our lifeline. So where you got from you were born until future, you could look at the future in your life. So if you wanted someone, then imagine what it was like in the past and try and go over a trauma, for example. So someone's a trauma, you go back to that near that point, maybe not exactly in it, but near the point, so that they could actually talk to younger self and explain how everything's going to be okay. They understand. So what we're trying to do is to take away the emotion, but keep the learning from that point. I've mentioned this before. And then they come back to what's the here and now. So that's on the timeline. But you also have a future timeline, which is still to be written. So that way you can get to imagine, okay, now you've overcame all that. Just think what you've had to do to get here. This is what you can do going forward with that. So imagine in a week's time, instead of a month, 6 months, a year, and you're in that similar situation. Get yourself to imagine what it's going to be like. What are you going to feel like when you do that? What are you going to sound like? What's it going to look like? So you get them to feel that. So you can use that in a timeline doing it, but it just depends on what the reason they're in the timeline for.
Yeah. And do you find the future pacing a really positive and good method for change for helping people? Is it something you use often yourself, Tony?
I use that in nearly every session that I do with people, as in if once they get the change part, that's only one part. I use it with different techniques to get there. You mentioned timeline, that's one technique where you could use it with. There's a lot of other ways that you can use it. One of the biggest ones I suppose that I use it with people is if someone has had a bad experience and you're getting to go over it, getting to think of a different time when they did this thing that wasn't so bad. And so you can overcome the bad and say, well, you've done it before, you can do it again and get me future pace that. Or ones like, the one thing we always say to people is we've got all the resources we need inside us to achieve what we want to achieve. It's how do you get them out there and how do you move forward with all of them? So we have different techniques. For example, with it, it's difficult because it depends what your listeners understand better. But there's a one thing that we use that's quite good when I use with this. And that is if they're trying to imagine, you mentioned it can be for good things. If you're trying to imagine someone's looking for confidence or they want to be happy at that, that's a powerful emotion to feel them. So what I get them to do is to make a little circle up with all these emotions that they want to help them to be that. So they make a little circle that they can just step into. And when they do that, they're immersing themselves with all of this. And then you get them to imagine going forward with all these new feelings, these new resources they've got to move forward, to achieve whatever the goal is they're trying to do, whether it's confidence, happiness, motivation, whatever it is. So it's combining more than one, and the future pacing and a thing called anchoring, which I've mentioned on here before, is just the way of keeping that feeling. So when you get that great emotion of happiness, whatever, when it's really at its height, then we do a thing called anchoring, which just means a trigger. So that in future, when you're about to do something like that, you can hit that anchor and that beautiful feeling, whether it's the emotion, confidence, happiness, whatever, stays with you. So you can just bring that back whenever you require it. So that's another form of future pacing, but using an anchor so you can always remember that same feeling.
That's great, isn't it, Tony? Because I love that because they're future pacing to where they've actually succeeded or got more confident And then by building that anchor, so you probably get them to test it, would you, as well? You know, after you've brought them back to the present, you know, just say you've brought them on a journey. Would you make? Well, you kind of would mention already a journey, wouldn't you? It would be classed as kind of a journey.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. Is trying to keep a language that your client will understand. That's the main thing you're trying to do. So if that's why I said that's got a title called Circle of Excellence, that I just mentioned. But if I say that to someone, it doesn't mean anything. So it's fine for me and you to know, because we're trained in that. So what they need to know is, like the circle that sits, there's a little circle where they've got all these feelings and emotions, all your resources are there. It's just getting them to come to the fore. But when they do, it's finding a way that you can always bring that back. So yeah, when someone's done that and they come out of, so it's a slight transfer doing it in NLP, or they come out of hypnotherapy and I bring them back, you can just say to them, how do you feel when you've got to do that again? And they do their little, whatever the sign is, they'll have their own. Mine is always the same. I use my left hand, I use my index finger and my thumb, and I always keep a nail slightly a wee bit longer. My wife always asks me, why do you nail like that? It's because when I press it in, it brings a sharp point. So for me, it brings that feeling back. But everybody will be different. They'll find their own way of doing it. But yeah, you can test that when it comes back and they see their face light up when that thought comes in their head. I've done it with you before. That example I used that with you before when you were doing an anchor ring, so people can understand that. And yet it's an amazing, it's such a powerful emotional thing to use. But yeah, the future pacing is only one part of all of those techniques together, which allows that change to happen.
Yeah, that's great, Tony. Thanks a lot for explaining that for everybody. That's brilliant. Yeah, because you just remind me there, when you're learning to play the guitar, you've got these things in your finger, like when you're holding the strings down. So it's something similar to that as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and you can use that. Can you imagine when you play your first tune? When you get some, you've learned all the chords, you put together the tune. Imagine that feeling that you get. Look at your smile when you think about it now. It's brilliant when you do that. Or you writing your first song. I know you've done that. So you wrote your first song, how that feels. That's what you would want to anchor, that emotion that you got when you did that. So anytime you get stuck trying to write, you just remember that feeling, go, I can do this, because you've had that before. So the feeling comes back and it gets you over any blocks of that you've got.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant, because it just shows you the amount of stuff you can kind of tie into using the future pace and like writing or anything really, can't you? Like it's such a wide range of stuff you can help with, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I said I use it for most clients for, depending on this going forward, before they leave me, I want them to go away feeling great, realizing what they've achieved and how they can do that in the future. But as we mentioned, for sport, it's perfect for athletes. It's perfect for just about any sport. As I mentioned doing it earlier, you could use that, and just there's so many different examples of sports that you can do it for, because it's all a mental rehearsal. That's all you get them to do. They get them to imagine it and what it's going to be like. So it helps them to relax because they know they can achieve it. So as I said, at the start of a race, they want to feel relaxed but focused. They feel that way because they know what they can do. So you build the confidence up in them. So it allows them to actually picture the success. That confidence is what you're going to feel. Remember we said when they break that tape and they cross the line, it helps them to focus, which is what you need on that. Don't get distracted by anybody else running about. You're not competing with anybody else. You can be you and your time. You know, if you did that time, you know what you're doing. So that's what you're aiming at. And then you overcome any problems. It helps them to think of, to put any situation that could go wrong, by future pacing your eternal, you've got ways to overcome that. So if you're not quite there, as we said, a lot of athletes have certain markers at time or distance they need to be at if they're going to achieve what they want to achieve a certain time. If you think someone try to break a world record, they know when they're trying to do that. So I'll say, for example, a mile, after 400 meters, they need to be at a certain point, 800 meters, 1,000 meters, 1,200, they know where they've got to be. And that last 200, they know if they've got to flat out, or if they can get going at a good set pace on there, will they get there to break the record they want? And that's what they do. They build up with all of these sections and they imagine all them doing that. And that's what you're doing in the head. You've got them with all of that. So you set them out beforehand, they know what they've got to do. And then they're feeling the confidence when they break through that to the end tape, knowing they've got the time, knowing they've done what they want to do. And hopefully they'll win it as well, because that's what they've imagined themselves doing. And that can nothing better than that. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's doing it as an athlete, you mentioned about a guitar, playing guitar, I said about you writing songs, where you do one of these programs. Imagine somebody doing their first, where we done it, your first podcast. You get so much going through your head. But I just did a little session of that on myself beforehand so that I'd feel confident enough going through it. So even if I wasn't, I looked at it. So I was fine with anybody looking on it. Sounds great, but probably a nervous wreck underneath. But again, that's what you have to be. The future pacing allowed me to do that.
Yeah, that's great, isn't it? So like that's great. Even you, as you said there, like, you know, you can kind of use it on yourself as well.
Yeah.
For for a little takeaway for people that are listening, can you would you do that yourself? Like future pace for yourself. You kind of mentioned there you do it a bit, but would you
Yeah.
recommend people to do that?
Yeah. If they want to do it, it's simple enough. It's just to think of a time when they've done whatever it is they want to face it out. If they've done it before, think of a time when they did that. And the thing I always get people to think about, most importantly, is if you try to do something like this and you want confidence or you want happiness, if I said to you, think when your children were born, right, how you felt when they were born, right, especially the first one, right, more than most people say because the first child. So you think of that, look at your face now, right, your face lights up and you say it and you start smiling. Think of that now. Never imagine what that felt like, just what the feelings you went through at that time. What did you see when you went through that? How did that make you feel? What did you hear? Maybe them cry for the first time, maybe something your wife said or nurses or whatever on about. You've got all these feelings, all that, and how happy, how proud and confident you felt. So whatever emotion you want, you imagine that now and you keep that. And that's what I said you can do. Now imagine a year's time, 6 months' time, when you've got to face something in your life you think is difficult. Just imagine when you felt like it that. That gives you the confidence to face anything. Because how you felt that day made you like cloud nine. And I would do something like that and say to you, right, so if I'm doing that myself, that's what I would do. I would think of a time I was really confident. What was that like? So whatever I've got to face now, I can bring that confidence back going, I can do this. I've done so many other things before, things that I thought I could never achieve and have achieved. So I get myself to do that. Imagine what it looks like. Imagine what you would hear. Imagine what you would feel like. And if you can do, if it's something outside, maybe what its senses like. So what is the taste? Maybe in the air, like I said about the sea, you can taste that. And the other one you want to do that is the smell. So if you've got something like that, what would it be like there? So maybe you're out somewhere fresh air, or it's a beautiful place you're visiting. What does it smell like? You go like that and you feel it. So every sense is there, and keep all of that and imagine what that will be like. And it brings all that confidence to you. So anybody can do it at any time.
That's great, Tony. That's brilliant. Thanks very much. That's great for everybody. Thanks a million for sharing that. Because it's funny that you were saying, you know, you've been on a couple of times before. It's been great. Thanks a million. Like it's got the way, like they all kind of tie in together with the metaphors and the future pacing and the anchors. It's great the way it kind of all comes together, you know, like, so the more you practice this stuff, the better you get it. Would you agree with it? Like, you agree with that?
That's the most important thing, is for anybody who wants to do these, whether it's doing it for yourself or whether it's doing it for you, working with clients, either way, it's all about practice. If the more you practice something, the better you become at it. And it's people say practice makes perfect. Will you ever get perfect? I'm not 100% sure, but I always think there's room for improvement no matter what you're doing. But if I can get to 9 out of 10 feeling with something, I feel amazing. I leave myself always that wee gap because I want to be better next time with something that I do. So yeah, anybody can do it and anybody can feel good with it as long as you keep doing it. Don't give up the first time you go, it didn't quite work out the way they said. The more you do it, you'll find your way of it yourself. It's simple when someone says something to you, but it's like driving. When you get taught to drive and they teach you, right, now use this with your left hand, now do this with your right hand, now look at that mirror. When you go next to a car and start doing it, do you ever do all that? No, you find your own way of doing it when you go on, you live your own routine and you still do all these things. You just subconsciously do it. You don't realize you're doing it. That's where future pacing can help us because you've got the image in your head, I can achieve this. It starts to become natural for you to do it. So the more you practice something, the natural the thing becomes. So you don't have to keep thinking about it. You know, next time I know I could do that because I was that confident before. That's where the wee anchor comes in. You press your anchor and go, right, I feel good. So you don't have to keep thinking of the situation. Just think of your anchor. What did it feel like when you're in that situation? And that gives you the confidence to face anything.
That's brilliant, Tony. Thanks a million for coming on again and talking about this subject. It's brilliant. And just before I let you go, if that's okay, people are listening on Spotify, you might just give the name of your website again and your contact details for people to who are interested in working with you, Tony.
Yeah, certainly. It's email is tonygordon@changingyourmindlimited.com. So the Change Your Mind Limited is LTD. So it's tonygordon@changingyourmindlimited.com. The website is changingyourmindlimited.com. And if anyone wants to get me by phone, it's 07581 410 435. I can give the details to you. You can put them on if you want, so that anybody can contact us there. And if anybody wants more information about this stuff as well, just to get a better understanding of it, just give me a message or go onto the website and just send me one through the contact form.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And just remind everybody who's listening on Spotify, you can also see this on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Mark Lestrange's YouTube channel. So make sure you check that out as well and subscribe as well. It'd be great. So once again, thanks a million, Tony, for coming on the podcast. And I wish you all the best.
So I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, no, brilliant. So we'll hopefully have you on in a couple of weeks again, talk about another aspect.
Okay, no problem at all. Just let me know in advance what it is, and I'll be happy to do it.
Yeah, great. Okay, so thanks everybody for tuning in today to Mark's Motivational Podcast, this Thursday episode with Tony Gordon. So take care of yourselves and talk to you soon. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, everybody. Bye. Oh, we'll end.